I now recognize Mr. Scott from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I know we've talked a lot about Russia, Iran, China, the alliance between the three. I guess the most brazen thing that I've ever seen with, or in recent times, with an attack on the United States has been the what China did with flying a spy balloon ever since the military installations inside the United States. And yet, less than 15 days after that occurred, Ford Motor Company announced a multi-billion-dollar alliance with Communist China on battery technology. Secretary Austin, I'm concerned about how we purge China from the DoD supply chain. I'm concerned about corporate America partnering with Communist China and then slapping a U.S.-made sticker on it and us buying it through our DoD with U.S. tax dollars, specifically with regard to the Chinese battery technology. And I just want to make sure that the DoD is aware of Ford Motor Company partnering with Communist China on the battery technology and make sure that the DoD is committed to not purchasing Communist China's battery technology. Can you speak to that issue and what you at the DoD are doing to purge China from the DoD supply chain, make sure we're not simply buying Chinese technology with a U.S. sticker on it?
Well, thanks, sir. As you know, this is a far bigger issue than just the Department of Defense. You know, we support a rules-based global market and that's been what we've supported for a long time. As you do that, certainly you will have supply chains that run through places like China. But what you've seen our leadership do recently is move to, as best we can, begin to onshore some of those capabilities that are represented in those supply chains and limit our liabilities there and limit our exposure.
Secretary Austin, if I could, would you agree that if you send money to one person and that person sends money then to Communist China and Communist China then uses that money against the United States, that, I mean, that's a circle where our dollars are being used against us?
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do and are doing is to continue to invest in our industrial base, continue to invest in our...
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm getting short on time, and I want to move to another question, but I would just tell you that I think it's counterproductive for the Department of Defense to purchase technology developed by the PLC and Chinese corporations. I think there's better technology available, and corporate America does not need to be allowed to sell, stick an American sticker on Communist China's technology and sell it to us, especially at the DoD. Moving to another question, General Milley, there are a lot of activity in our own backyard just south of our border. I've been there a couple of times. The drug cartels' activity and capabilities have increased drastically over the last few years. We're seeing larger influxes from a lot of countries, including China. We've seen a 1,000% plus increase in the amount of people coming from China. They can get a 14-day travel visa into Mexico and then simply come to the U.S. border and claim asylum, and 72 hours later they're in our country. Is Southcom, and I realize Southcom operates south of Mexico, Southcom and Northcom, are they getting adequate resources to target the illegal immigration, whether it be from China or the transnational criminal organizations coming from south of there and the drug cartels?
Given our global commitments, I think they've got adequate resources. However, I would say that there's no COCOM out there at all who would tell you that they get all the resources that they need. So they always need more. But I've talked very frequently with Laura Richardson and Glenn Van Herk. There's no question that there's a vulnerability on our southern border. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. You've got thousands of people coming across every single day. There's a lot of drugs coming across every single day. You've got a major league fentanyl crisis. So there is clearly a vulnerability there. And, of course, the precursor chemicals for the fentanyl, et cetera, come from China and so on. So, yes, there's a vulnerability there. Could they use more assets? Sure, they could use more assets. But this is fundamentally, in my view, at this point in time, until this policy changes, if there's ever going to be a policy change, right now this is fundamentally a law enforcement and intelligence operation to work with our host nations of either Mexico or some of the Central American nations to stem the flow of the illegal migration and to stem the flow of the drug trade. I've spent a lot of time in Latin America. It's a very complex problem. I've been involved in the drug war for years. Very complex, not easy
My
solution.
time's expiring.
Yeah.
It is a complex problem, but we are being taken advantage of. And
Totally.
when you can get a 14-day travel visa to Mexico, and then you can simply present yourself to the Border Patrol, and then you're released into this country less than 72 hours, that's a pretty easy way for someone who wants to hurt Americans to get into this country.
I don't disagree with that.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair, now